I'm Susan. Welcome to Tea and Games. The tea today is Brodies Scottish Breakfast, which is strong. And that, I think, is what I needed today. Since I haven't said my little disclaimer statement in a few videos, I'm going to go ahead and say it now right at the top of this one. I am not a professional content creator. I do not aspire to be a professional content creator. I'm just doing this for fun. So I don't get free stuff from publishers. My opinions are my own. And today we're going to be looking at two new-ish games that we played this past weekend. I say new-ish because one of them is Fromage, which has been out for a couple of years at least. But I've just now gotten it, and I've played it a couple of times on Boardgame Arena and just kind of muddled my way through. I did not understand everything at the time that I was playing it, and getting it on the table and looking at the rulebook, things became more clear to me than they were just with videos and Boardgame Arena stuff. Also, there are some games that I just have difficulty learning digitally. There are some games that I swear I could not have learned if I had not learned them digitally, but there are some games, the digital version of it, it just does not click in my brain, and that's okay. I can always put it on the table. The main reason why I played it on Boardgame Arena was that I wanted to see if it was something, if I thought it was something that we would like. We have both seen videos on it, and it looked interesting. So when I say both, I mean my husband, Robert, and I. He is my primary board game partner. But on Boardgame Arena, one of the problems I have had was the color scheme. And I mean, the color scheme is the same as in the box, but there was something about seeing it on the screen and not being familiar with the game. There were times where I was momentarily confused or had to remind myself what was what, because this has this very muted color palette, which is lovely. See? Lovely. But I wasn't playing my usual player color because they don't have the usual player colors. And the cheeses come in three colors: white, blue, and yellow. And the tiers in which you place the cheeses, which determine scoring, there's different levels of plates on the board. And those plates are blue, yellow, and pink. Pinkish red. So, but they're supposed to be bronze, silver, and gold. But they kind of like, it's like I've got blue, silver, and blue cheese, and I've got yellow, gold, and gold cheese, yellow cheese. And I just, when I was looking at it, and also the different player colors on the thing, I found it hard for some reason to keep track of my wedges of cheese and when things were going to come back around to me. So I struggled quite a bit on Boardgame Arena, and this is not a problem I've ever heard anybody else talk about. It must just be me. But once we got it on the table, it's like we looked at this, we thumbed through the rule book, and we're going like, right, got it. And there was no problem at all. This is a really nifty worker placement game. And by nifty, I mean tricky. It's got a little bit, maybe a lot of a twist on worker placement. You got 3 workers. And those 3 workers can only be used, each of them, for very specific things. Now, any of them can gather resources. That's kind of generic. But for making cheese, and while there are other things besides making cheese you can do, like getting livestock, activating buildings for special abilities, or gathering resources, primarily you're going to be making cheese on your turn. And if you can't make cheese on your turn, this means that you've managed your workers very badly in all probability. I haven't played a game of it yet where I was totally out of workers on my turn. But yes, I've gotten close because I didn't plan very well. It was like I thought I was going to have 2 workers, but I only had 1. And that's another thing. You don't get all your workers back at the end of the turn. So you've got 3 workers. Each one of those workers makes a specific type of cheese, although you can assign them to other things like gather resources. The cheese making portion, they can only make certain bits of cheese. And you're like, okay, well, I'll make yellow, blue, whatever. But no, those specific bits of cheese have specific spaces on the board. And each wedge of the round board, each wedge is what many people are calling a mini game, meaning each wedge strategically scores differently. You need to place your cheese to different criteria for each of those 4 sections of the wheel down there. And there are little wedges there where you can place your cheese, and those wedges are turned different ways, and that's because it determines like how long your worker is gone. So on one hand, also it's like I want to make a yellow cheese. I've got a yellow cheese worker. Done good. I've got a yellow cheese worker. So I'm going to place my yellow cheese worker, but then I'm looking at this and I'm going like, but the only place to place the yellow cheese worker is on this gold spot, which means I'm not going to get that worker back on my next turn. I'm not going to get the worker back on the turn after that either. I'm going to have to wait 3 turns to get that worker back, meaning I'm going to get that worker back when the wheel is gone and I am playing on this other part of the board. And so it's very tricky because the workers can only be used for certain things. There is a wide variety of cheeses all jumbled up in each section of that board. So you're looking at this and you're kind of maybe looking ahead to the next section of the board and you're going like, I want to put this worker here, but I'm going to need that to make a soft white 1-year cheese when the wheel turns so that I can score on that next section. But now what am I going to do about the section that is in front of me right now? The game plays extraordinarily fast. I mean, given the fact that it's a little thinky, because you generally are only placing a couple of workers each turn. And it's simultaneous action because each person is working on that wedge of cheese that is directly in front of them for their turn. And then when everybody has placed their workers, activated their structures, or gathered their resources, then you turn the wheel and everybody grabs their workers back, the ones that can come back. The 1-month cheese workers or the workers that gathered resources, they come back on 1 turn, but the rest of them, it may be 2 or 3 turns of the wheel before they come back. And then it's like a specific thing. You're looking at this and you're going like, can I afford to have that worker sitting out there that long? And when I get him back, I'm going to be working on that section there, and I'm going to need a blue cheese worker for that one, so it doesn't matter if the yellow one isn't here, but on the other hand, I'm going to need the yellow one before that. But then I've got this white soft cheese worker here. And I've got this objective card. So, I mean, I need to get that one out so that I can fulfill that objective card. The objective cards are neat. It gives you something to focus on when you're first starting to play the game. When I played the game on Boardgame Arena, I really leaned into those objective cards because there was just so much going on all these little boards. I'm going like, but I can get the objectives. Even if I utterly tank on this wedge of cheese, I've got a bunch of objective cards and I'm going to do my objectives. So it kind of gave me something to do before I understood what I was doing. But yeah, it is a neat little game. It's fast and it's easy to understand, but it is tricky to do well because there's a lot of different things you're balancing. It has interesting decisions. And right off the top of my head, oh please, somebody put in comments if you can think of an example of this. I can't think of any other game in which your workers can only be used for each worker can only be used for specific things, and you don't get them all back every turn at the end of every turn. So those two things going together make the decision space in this really interesting and tricky, but in a fun sort of way. I mean, I don't know. It's like, I suppose you could just sit there and just go and think about it and just get all wound up in that whole decision-making process. But at some point I just look at it and go, oh, what the heck? I'll just put that worker there and we'll figure it out later. It's like the wheel will turn eventually. But yes, Fromage is a fun little game. I can see now why so many people like it and enjoy it so very much. There is an expansion / standalone game called Fromagio, which I believe the Kickstarter delivers early next year, but it may be at Gen Con, which is this weekend. Actually, I think it's already started. I'm not there. Surprise, surprise. But I think it is both a standalone game and it or parts of it can be used as an expansion for this. I don't know. I didn't look into it too much because at that time I did not have Fromage. I just got Fromage in this recent restock. So yeah, we're really happy with this. We played it twice back to back on Saturday and are really looking forward to playing it again because it's interesting and fun and it plays very fast. Of course, we played it at 2 players. I'm thinking it's going to slow down a little bit with more players. It's simultaneous action, but still, the more players you have, the greater the chances that there's going to be somebody in the group that's just going to think about it way too long. Okay, maybe not way too long for them, but way too long for the other players. The other game that we played this weekend is Moon Colony Bloodbath. Yeah, it is kitschy retro fun. And notice the designer's name here. Donald X. Baccarino. Wanted to make sure I said that right, and I'm still not sure I did. That's the same guy who designed Dominion. So you're thinking, deck building game? Yeah, kind of a deck building game. You're definitely building a deck. A deck of death. It is a shared deck that you're building. And I sleeved the cards. I got sleeves for them and I sleeved them yesterday because we played this 3 times on Sunday, just back to back to back to back. Yeah, it's fun, but the cards get handled a lot and the cards are kind of thin. There's no linen finish. You can actually almost feel the printing on the cards. These are the player boards. You play as different characters, but there are no asymmetric powers. Every character has the same abilities and stuff on their board. That's Dr. Brain. We have Dr. Kaneko, Dr. Banerjee, Dr. White, and Dr. Dibson. Dibson, yeah. I played as Dr. Dibson because I just kind of like that kind of cool, laid-back vibe in the midst of all of these disasters. But they have your starting resources printed right on the player board, which is very, very nifty. These are your basic work actions, but you will be doing other things because deck building, things go into that deck. So everybody has perk cards. Well, there's a deck of starting cards. There's a deck of starting cards. There's work cards, trouble cards, which have you add events. You will be adding the events in order. They're enabled 1 through 13. 13 is the game ending one. You're probably not going to make it through the deck in your first few games. We got as far as adding event number 9. That's as far as we've ever gotten. And you'll add in a couple of twists. The twists actually give you options of things that you can do, which are usually pretty good. But the event cards, as event cards so often are in board games, are usually bad stuff. The first event is hunger, which means you got to pay for all those people in your buildings. And periodically you will be asked to add in robots, which are going to malfunction in horrible ways and deplete your population. So, and then you have this massive stack of building cards. It looks actually bigger than it is, but it is because I've got some sleeves, but it is a pretty good stack. You won't go through this stack. But the thing is, you're going to be going through the deck of cards. You start off with those starting cards and a couple of twists, and the trouble cards in the starting deck will have you add in the first events. And then when you get to the end of that deck, you shuffle it and you lay it back out and you go through the deck again. And when I say you, I mean everyone. It's not a single deck building game. Sometimes you will have building cards that will tell you to add certain things to the deck. Sometimes they're good things, like there are, like it'll tell you to add like a twist or something, but sometimes it will also, or a development card, but sometimes it will ask you to tell you to add something that is actually not going to work out so well in the long run. It's like it's not necessarily a good thing. So when you're building the buildings, you're trying to get a lot of people in those buildings, because when you're out of population, you're all dead, and that's the end of the game. This game feels a lot like a co-op, because there is very much a you against the game thing for the entire game, except that you and the other players are not cooperating, trying to beat the game. You are each individually struggling to keep your population alive, as all of these cards are calling you to lose 3 population, lose 5 population, lose 7 population. And you start off with a certain amount of population on your board, but once they're gone, then you have to start destroying the buildings that you've built in order to get the population that was in those buildings, put them on your board, and pay for the population that you've got to get rid of. It's been called by the designer an engine building, engine destroying game, and there is quite a lot of destruction in this game, though it is all in good fun. I feel like this would work really well as a co-op. It has a solo mode. There's one card that's added for the solo mode. I haven't played it solo, but it has such a co-op solo you against the game feel. I think it probably would play well as a solo game. And there are, I think, some solo playthroughs on YouTube. But what I'm going to put a link for is the Boardgame Geek teach and playthrough, because we saw that and we thought, this is going to be kind of a lot of fun. I mean, they do have some really kind of interesting flavor text on some of the cards and some of the characters. Each character has perk cards. Let me see if I can find them. And they're the same for any character. But the flavor text on the perk card is different. This one says, "Quick, look behind you." And it says, "The moon colonies are too important to entrust to fallible humans. The more robots, the better." Of course, playing this game, you know, the more robots, the worse it gets. Dr. Dibson says, "I'll also be in charge of trampolines." And it says, another one from Dr. Dibson is, "Of course we don't know what we're doing. That's what makes it science. When you know what you're doing, that's like a craft or something." So I could have actually done with more flavor text on cards. There's less flavor text than I would have liked, and that and the thinness of the cards is my only complaint so far. But it is an interesting little puzzle. It is fun if you don't mind too much death and destruction. And it does play very quickly because you die kind of quickly when you first start playing. I mean, we got good enough at playing that we weren't dying all the time with 3 games that we played back to back, but it is very tough. It is definitely very tough. And if you survive all the way through the event deck, I mean, when somebody has all their population gone, that triggers game end, and the person with the most population of those remaining wins. But if you make it all the way through the event deck, the last card triggers game end. And then, because everybody still has population left, it's whoever has the most people left that wins. But yeah, it's all about death and destruction on the Moon Colony. Moon Colony Bloodbath. It is a lot of fun, but if you like the game, you're going to want to sleeve the cards because you're going through the deck a lot. The event cards are going to be in every single game. And that means that they're going to be shuffled and reshuffled on every single turn of every single game, which means that, say you get through 7 events, those cards are going to be shuffled 7 times in the course of one game. And then you have the twist cards. There are a lot of different twist cards, so you're probably not going to have the same ones in each game. But again, in each game, when you get to the end of the deck, you shuffle the deck and you start over. You get to the end of the deck, you shuffle the deck and turn over the next card. Everybody does the thing. Like Fromage, Moon Colony Bloodbath has simultaneous action. You turn over a card, everybody does the thing, which is usually losing population, but sometimes it's work action, and you can gain things like resources. You can build buildings for more of your people. You can farm and get food to feed those people. You can draw more cards, which is research, or mine, which is getting money to pay for those cards. So it is very much a little engine builder, engine destroyer kind of game. If you don't like games that are fairly punishing, in which basically it just all goes to heck, then this might not be for you. But if you go into it with kind of a light attitude, which we did, then it can still be kind of fun, because it's not like you're just having a bad day because everybody is dying. It's like you turn over that card, it says lose 7 population. Everybody is losing 7 population. So the pain is shared. But we had a lot of fun with this. I think it's going to be a keeper. At least until... And I could see how this game could have expansions in the future. I'm hoping they do expansions, something with more cards, more variety of cards, maybe throw in more characters just for, again, variety, or make it, or come up with a co-op version. I feel like somebody somewhere, even if it's just like a regular game player and not the designer, is going to come up with a co-op version of this game, because it feels like a co-op game. It is you versus the game. You trying to optimize everything as best you can, and you know what bad things are in that deck that are going to happen. And the event cards, they're face up. You see what event is going to be happening next, so you can sort of prepare for it, because you know there's a card in the deck, and when you turn it over, it's going to say add the next event. So you have maybe some time to prepare for it. Although it was the beginning of the deck and I thought I had time. I thought, oh, I've got a work action here. Do I want to farm or do I want to build? And I built instead of farming, and the next card was the one in which I had to feed all the people in the buildings, and I didn't have enough food. So, yeah, sometimes you guess wrong about when that card is going to turn up. But it is a lot of fun, and so is Fromage. And I thought it was kind of interesting. Both of the games we played were fairly fast games that had simultaneous action. Now, admittedly, as you get better at Moon Colony Bloodbath, and as you play with more people, although there are simultaneous actions, the game can kind of drag out longer, because you get better at keeping the people alive and keeping your population growing even as you're losing population. So, so the game can kind of get longer and longer as you get better at it, because it ends when when one person has no more people, or when you've gone through the entire event deck, which would be the 13th turn. Unlucky 13. But that is what we played this past weekend. It was just a whole lot of death and cheese. And we had a great time, and I hope you enjoyed watching me talk about this. Fromage is well known enough. I'm not going to link to anything particular about how to play Fromage because there are a ton of videos out there. This game is very new. And I think there are some solo playthroughs out there of it, but there are not a lot of just basic how to play just the regular game with a group of people things. So might be a good one for a game group. But I will put a link to the Boardgame Geek how to play playthrough thing. I think it's called Game Night. And I will see y'all next time round the table. Bye.